My name is Joel Sears. Some of you know me. Maybe you know me by reputation. Sometimes it's not that good, but for the last 10 years or so, I served on the York Suburban School Board. I have a fairly good knowledge, a deep knowledge of what's been going on in the district in the last few years, and I still don't know enough. It's an incredibly difficult job, as you can imagine. We're going to touch on one slice of it tonight, and that's the construction and renovation plans that have been under consideration in the district for almost 10 years. It's the culmination of a tremendous amount of work, a tremendous amount of research, and a lot of change. So one of the things I'd like to say is that sometimes we're talking about a moving target here, and that's not all bad. When people take into account a project of this magnitude, you have to expect that there's going to be input from the folks who actually directly benefit, the people who work for the school district, and those of us who live in the district as well, have kids in school or grandkids or something like that. So understand that some of the numbers that we might put up tonight are subject to change, but that would be minor change, unless this group is successful in redirecting the district from what it is about to do, which is to unleash several tens of millions of dollars on construction that you all need to be part of. I'd like to maybe do some ground rules. One of those is to make sure your telephones are silenced if they're not. The other is, if you can't see things, some of these slides are going to get a little intense because this is about money. It's about decisions that depend on a lot of money. And I'm going to ask for a show of hands right now. How many of you pay taxes in the district? All right, so this is pertinent to all of us. How many of you would like to see those taxes stabilize a little bit?
Disappear.
Or disappear? We all want that. We live in 3 or 4 different governmental jurisdictions. We live in the county, well, we live in the state, but we live in the county, we live in townships, we have fire districts, we have a school district, all of whom do what? They raise revenue through property taxes. And they all compete for the same dollars. Sometimes you would not think that they understand that they make decisions independently of one another. Any Spring Gardens Township residents? We just got hit with a 13% increase. How many of you knew about that before it happened? You knew about it before it happened. Amazing. I didn't know about it, and I think I'm dialed in. Well, I missed that one until I opened the envelope. So anyway, cell phones, another thing is let's be respectful. We're going to get into a comment and question and answer session. We're not here to vent frustrations. It's okay to be emotional and firm, but let's make sure that we understand we're here to communicate, not to fight with each other. There are a lot of emotional folks, and I'm one of them, and I'll try to dial it back. So if you bear with me, I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of what we're about to do. This is what we're going to try to cover tonight. I'm going to give you a brief history of this construction thing that started out with the name FFP, which stands for Future Focused Planning. How we're going to pay for it, what the impact is on the taxpayer, what some alternatives are that we could consider to take care of what's about to happen, what we can do as residents, and then we'll open it up for comments and questions. So we'll have questions and such at the end. We'll give you a little bit of a history of this thing called FFP. Initially, FFP was a concept to try to do something to bring efficiencies, equity, and opportunities in education that the current configuration of the district does not supply. That was the premise. It was supposed to be based on sustainable financial and academic models that would do the district proud for the next 30 to 50 years. It involved a total reconfiguration of the district, and you can see the bullet points here. What was called the secondary campus, where the high school is now, that would house all of our 7th through 12th graders. Something called the Intermediate Center at the middle school. That's the topic of tomorrow night's meeting at the East York School. We'll get into that. An elementary center, which was supposed to be a single building for all of our kindergarten through 2nd grade kids. Worked to the district administrative office early learning center, and one proposal there was to take those over to Yorkshire to use that building. Initially, the cost estimate ran between $132 and $140 million. Significant amount of money. Fast forward to as recently as last night at the board meeting, the current proposal on the table, and this has been the direction for about the last 6 to 8 months, is to build an intermediate center where East York is currently located. that would house all 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders at a cost of $44.4 million. Second phase of that, or second project as it's called, is to renovate the high school for a cost of $64.4 million. Then there are other district projects that would also be folded into that at a cost of $10.6 million. So those estimates, and these are taken off documents that were provided by the financial consultant to the district, those total $117.6 million. Project status, as of right now, as we speak, the school has authorized the administration to proceed with planning and design for the intermediate center and the high school, and to work with a company called PFM and their attorneys, Stock and Leader, that are doing bond counsel, and they're providing local solicitor services for the issuance of the bonds. This was authorized by the board by a vote on August 28, 2023. This does not authorize, this is important, this does not authorize construction. The authorization was for planning and design. And you can take a look at the minutes to the meeting, you'll see that for yourselves. You may hear from some people that it's a done deal. It's not a done deal. If it were, we wouldn't be here tonight. As we start looking at what's going on with this, a total construction cost of $118.4 million, the intermediate center at 44, the funds allocated to the project are 120, which means that there is roughly a $2 million expenditure on administrative fees and bond placement fees and that sort of thing. All necessary, I understand that. The total payments for this $120 million investment through the year 2054 with interest is $260 million. Bonds issued to date are just under $15 million. The board authorized last night the issuance of another $9.995 million to go into the construction pool. Here's where the money's coming from and where it's been coming from. I'll read this stuff. It just adds up to the numbers that we talked about. Some of the money's coming from district cash and some through accrued interest, because as these funds are borrowed, they must be deposited, and they do bear interest. So there will be interest income during the rollout until the funds that are actually drawn down for the construction, payments to the construction companies. So the total bond issue is 114.5, district cash and whatnot. So the total source of money is $120 million. What are we going to use it for? We're going to spend $44.4 on the intermediate center, $63.4 on the high school. See these numbers before. Other projects at $10.6 for a total of $118 million. That's where the money's going. How do we pay for it? Anybody have any idea? Taxes, yes, taxes. That's how we pay for it. And essentially, when we start talking about taxes, we got to use this little term called millage, right? What's millage? Well, a mill is 0.1%. That's all it is. Back in the old days, when taxes were about as big as my fingernails, we wanted to talk in whole numbers. So we invented this mill thing. So we could talk about 1 mil or 2 mils or 3 mils. And not have to say 0.1% or 0.4%. It just made it easier to communicate. But it's 0.1%. And as we start looking forward to see how this is being done, the business manager proposed, and I would say to her credit, a phase-in. Considering that we're going to do this, there are caps on the amount of tax that the school district can raise in a given year. I don't want to get too much in the weeds. We want to get into this later. I'm happy to do that. But this thing called the Act 1 Index puts a ceiling on the amount of the tax increase in the school district. The county and the township have no such limit. The school district does. And because of that, they know that if they need a big shot of cash, for example, when the township raised our taxes 13%, there was nothing to prevent that from happening, other than, say, taxpayer outrage before the fact, but that didn't happen. In the case of school districts, there is a limit. And in the upcoming school year, the limit is 6.4%. There are other means to go beyond that, but typically school districts live within this thing called the index. For suburban, that's 6.4%. So if you're going to have a gigantic expenditure, you want to go on a vacation or something like that, and you have a limited amount of money to use, you're going to set aside some of that money every year to build the fund and then to pay off whatever it is that its intended purpose is. So when we look at these annual increments, they actually started 2 years ago. We're into the second year, really a year ago, we're in the second year of it, where we've been accruing, and I say we, because it's our money, it's not the district's money. We've been accruing about $0.5 mil, 0.41 of a mil, for 2 years, and then we're gonna have it in the next upcoming year, just a little over $0.5 mil. And then in the fourth, fifth, sixth year of this accrual, that level will hit 0.6 of a mil, and we will then have an accumulated total of 3.19 mils, which is about, what was that, James? You had the number earlier. What percentage of our total tax is that? 13%. 13%. 13% of our total tax will be allocated for this project forever. Just understand that these increments build it to that level, but it doesn't go away after that. It stays on forever till the end of 2054. And even then it continues because a school board, schools throughout the Commonwealth, probably throughout the nation, are told by their advisors that they should never give up millage. Don't ever give it up because you'll never get it back. That's the advice we're given. So it will stay forever. Is it enough? Any guesses? No. The answer is no. That big red number tells you how much would remain if we took these phase-in villages and applied them to the valuation of the district, because that's what's being taxed. It's not your house and my house, it's all the houses. It's all of the businesses that are in the tax base. Currently, the tax base is about $1.85 billion, and by applying those phase-in villages, we generate $203 million over the course of these bonds. As we said earlier, the principal and interest on those bonds is $260 million, leaving a $57 million shortfall. Where do you suppose that's coming from? Do you think it's going to come raining down? Do you think there's a magic tree that grows this kind of money? Of course not. Most of our money trees died. Didn't have enough to buy the fertilizer. And so as a result of that, the district has, again, one choice, and that's to move money from other accounts or to find other ways to bring money in. There's even discussion of bringing a grant consulting in to try to get charitable donations to make up some of these differences. And I'm being serious. If you take a look at the film or the minutes from last night's board meeting, you'll hear that the board approved the hiring of a consultant to help them get grant money. In any case, there's something that's on the school website called the Taxpayer Impact Calculator, and it's designed to show the impact of the phase-in millage so that you could tailor that to your own situation. You put your assessed value in, it computes the incremental impact, that is the year-to-year increases, but it does not show the total dollar impact through the end of the phase-in period. It doesn't show the impact beyond the phase-in period. And it tries to state things, and you'll see this in a minute, I'll give you an eye test, your first one of the night, to get you to focus on the increments, not the totals. And this is a technique that I'm going to say this critically of my school board colleagues around the Commonwealth, maybe around the country, I don't know. We try to trivialize tax increases. We try to make you think that these tax increases only amount to a few dollars a month, a couple cents a day, and it goes exactly against it. Well, I heard last night, for example, that this trivial tax increase that we're talking about would only cost, let's take a look here. This is a simple example for an assessment of $100,000, which is very low, as you can imagine. And the reason for that is because we can think about our own assessment and make it a function of that $100,000. So if you have a $200,000 assessment, your numbers are twice what's on this page. If you have a $150,000, it'll be 1.5 times what's on this page. But on the active calculator on the website, you put your actual amount in and it'll tell you the numbers. This is the extent of what you're going to see on the school website. And the takeaway, when I look at it, when most people look at it, is that the tax is only a $59 a year increase. Is that what that looks like? It's a $59 a year increase. What's the big deal? 4 years at $60 a year? You kidding? We can do $260 million of bond payments with that? Great. Knock yourselves out. That's not how it works, folks. So I'm going to take you all through a little law and order thing. Put your right hand up. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Correct? Well, this is the truth, but it's not the whole truth. And that's what's got me rankled. So I'll back off my high horse here for a minute. Here's what the district has also done to help us see just how trivial this is. Oops. See this number here? What is that? $4.92 a month. $4.92 a month. Well, come on. You can't even get a cup of coffee for that now. It's trivial. Why should we worry about that? So I want to challenge you to take a look at something first that shows how it really works. This is how it really works. That $59 incremental increase and then that $60 one drop down year by year and carry forward. Does that make sense? Next year, another one drops down on the stack and it carries forward forever. Then the next year, another one drops until finally the $60 increment drops, and we get a cumulative total of $237. All right, not 59 going forward, 237 going forward. That makes sense? This is important. How long does that continue? Forever. Correct. This is not a 4-year obligation, it's a forever obligation. So the average annual impact, again, if I want to trivialize things, well, the average is only a $59 increase. But when I look at how many dollars I'm spending, total dollars, this year and all prior years, that average goes from 59 to 88 to 118 to 147. That's about, what, 2.5, 3 times the number that's advertised? I don't like this. I don't like to have this conversation. I feel like I'm lecturing people. This amount continues through the entire financing period and beyond. That's all I can say. I want to emphasize that over and over. Now, this is not supposed to be an eye test, but we know that we can calculate the impact. Now, if we agree that that's the way to do it, that that's the right technique, then what we can do is easily say, well, it's just arithmetic. You know, we're all here in this wonderful district, and we know how to do basic arithmetic functions. If our school tax is $1,000 in the current year, then the impact through 2028 is $230. Simple. We go through 2034. I like that one. I'm kind of a bit of a legislative wonk, and I like this 10-year scoring because it gives us an opportunity to not trivialize these increases. What's the impact over 10 years? Well, $784. If your assessment is, if your taxes are $5,000, then that 10-year impact is almost $4,000. Now, that's not your tax bill. That's the total dollars that you will have added to your tax bill through that period of time. That is the impact. Do you agree on that, or am I all wet on this stuff? If you listen to the tapes from the school board meetings, you will hear people say that we're misrepresenting this, that we don't know our math, but they can't show us where the problems are. So, anyway, we can do that with assessments too. Again, it's just math. If you have a $100,000 assessment through 2028, you'll pay $591 more in taxes than you would without this construction. If you have a $300,000 assessment through the end of the 10-year period, you will have spent $6,000 more. Now, for most of us, $6,000 over a 10-year period of time is a lot of money. That's $600 a year. Is that significant to anybody here? Does that matter? For some of us in here, that's our copay. It's not coffee. It's not 5 or 6 packs of cigarettes a day. It's our copay. It's a part of our electric bill. That's what's going on here. You all know that. I'm preaching to the choir. I know that. Are there alternatives? Well, that's one of the big challenges here. We have kids to educate, and there's a certain minimum that we have to deliver in the way of facilities and curriculum and qualified teachers and whatnot, and it's expensive. There's no question about it. And I think we're all committed to that. We're all in favor of a well-educated population. The only way to do that is to have good schools and they take good funding. Are there alternatives to this? Well, I'm going to turn the clock back. This thing that was called FFP Study 1, which was published on October 11th, 2021, was one of the first places that we could benchmark how much it was going to cost to do this conversion of the what's now called the Intermediate Center. That estimated cost, and this was Study 1, it's very important because it says maintain current grade alignments. There had to be a way to benchmark all of these investments. And one way to do that was to say, well, let's just keep the schools where they are, but let's make sure we upgrade them to modern standards. And that's what this maintain current grade alignment thing says for the current, or for what was called Study 1. And that cost estimate was $34.9 to $38 million for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade consolidation. That's what that was all about. Fast forward to May 30th, 2023, the same firm that has been the architect through this entire process delivered to the district something called a 10-year outlook. That also maintained current grade alignments, no new buildings. That was to be rolled out over a 10-year period of time, so some of the so-called investments would live way beyond the 10 years. For example, if somebody replaced or decided they needed a new roof on a school, that's not a 1 or 2 year life cycle. Hopefully it goes 25, 30, 40 years. So understand that these expenditures in a 10-year outlook did not have to be repeated. They're just good maintenance. That's essentially what that was all about. And there was some other building expansion and the like, some attention being paid to gymnasiums and cafeterias and that sort of thing. The estimated cost of that for the schools that we're talking about, Indian Rock and East York, was $15.9 to $19.3 million. Okay, so that's an alternative. And the final one was presented again last night, and this is the one that's under consideration, and hopefully some of you, all of you, would like to go to the presentation tomorrow at East York to hear about the Intermediate Center. That has an estimated cost of $43.5 to $44.7 million. That's what's on the table. And just to explain what that means, brand new construction, a brand new school on the East York property. When it's complete, Indian Rock will be vacated. The East York building will be vacated. The young 3rd to 5th graders would all attend the new school. East York would be demolished, and off we go. There would be there's talk about an alternative use of Indian Rock, renting it to somebody or whatever, but not a sale. The district is not at all interested in selling that property. Now this is where things get hairy. All this does is back up these numbers. So I'm not going to go through this chapter and verse, but I just want you to know that these are hard numbers. They come from vetted sources, and I'm happy to show this in detail to anybody who cares to look at it later, but we'll get moving on. So that's the detail that's available for the district under the Study 1. This is the detail from the 10-year capital project estimates. And so that's where we sit at this point. That's the status of the project to date, and here we all are. What can we do? Well, we can stay informed. We can attend the meeting at East York Elementary tomorrow at 7 p.m. to hear as much as we want. It's supposed to be a roundtable session with experts in each area of this project. They're there to interact with members of the community and answer their questions. We can attend local board meetings. I know that sounds awful, but something that involvement in the community really requires. Same thing with our township. It really pays to go to a township meeting from time to time. Sign a petition. I think a lot of you have done that tonight. Circulate a petition. That's how we multiply. It's to get more people to understand what's happening. Call, write, email board members and administration. I want to just end with a little, just to let you see how easy it is to get access to the information. Click the link. All right, simple. This takes you right to the page that has all the information about what's going on in the district. Stay informed, join us for a public meeting. Or here's the impact calculator so that you could actually run the numbers that you saw in the format earlier for your property. And you can scroll through this. I know you all love going on the website. And scroll through this until you find all the detailed information that tracks the project from as far back as April of 2021. You can also take a look at teachersnotbuildings.com. This is a website and process so that you can see information that we're presenting tonight. I believe this is being videoed and will be posted on the site as well. And I'll make an offer to anybody in the room who wants more detail, who wants to talk. I'll give you my phone number, give you my email address. Our purpose tonight is to inform the public, to tell you things you may not have heard. And, before we go to the comments and questions, let me just ask one more question of you. How many of you knew about this at all, had any idea this was going on before tonight? Okay. And so, what I want to say is, it's going to sound critical, but it's just the way the world works. The district has done everything it can do, short of drag people in to inform them about this project. And yet most of us are woefully uninformed. Well, why is that? Why do you think? Well, how many of you regularly go to the school website to check things out? A couple, okay, so some, but as you look around the room, it's 1 or 2 or 3 people out of hundreds that actually go and look at this information. Shame on you. Shame on all of us. How many of you go to the county website and look at what's going on at the county level? I don't. I should, but I don't. And so this tells a lot of elected officials that you're okay with it. That's the implication. If we don't come forward and say we don't want this, they think we're okay with it.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
You sent us a postcard. They didn't even do that. Why not?
Well, that was Mike and his crew that sent the
Yeah, but I'm
postcard.
saying the school, I have got 0 from the school board.
Thank you. I
Hang
haven't
on,
received anything
get
either
that
from
a
last
second. We
week.
don't really want to start questions from the floor yet. We're going to try to do this in a civilized fashion. Anyway, so you see what you can do, and all of it requires action. You got to do something. Get informed, go to meetings, talk to your friends and neighbors.